Welcome to My Life, Tanya Applied with Rabbi Simon Jacobson, a journey into the deepest teachings of Torah and their application to our personal, emotional, and psychological lives.
A good tavach, a good week. We continue our journey in the life-changing Sefer Tanya. This program is made possible by Rena Lights LLC, and it's in honor and memory of Rabbi Yosef Halevi Weinberg Olav Hashalom, Rabbi Moshe Pinchas HaKohen Katz Olav Hashalom, Rabbi Yael HaKohen Khan Olav Hashalom, and it's the schus and merit of Rab Zev Yecheskel HaKohen Arisha Katz Le'erich Yomim V'Shanim Tevis for many long, healthy years. I hope everyone had a wonderful, freeing, transcendent, liberating Pesach. Now we go from Pesach into the days of the end of Nissan and then the month of Iyar, counting of the Sfira as we prepare for Matan Torah. Being also that this Shabbos, today was Chof Ches Nissan, the 28th of Nissan, special day, especially in the world of Chabad. 34 years ago, this was the day that the Rebbe delivered an impassioned plea, giving the job to each one of us to bring Moshiach and Gula, and the Rebbe said the famous words, Ich habe getan alles was ich kann. I did everything I can to bring Moshiach. Tut alles was ihr könnt. Do everything you can. So I thought appropriate, being that it's the anniversary of such a special day, special words, that we should share and dedicate a few comments on this message and what it means to each one of us. And why? Why is it relevant here? Because Tanya, which is what we're teaching, this journey is Tanya, is all about Yefutza Meinasecha Chutza. In one of the approbations, the Haskamas to Tanya, he writes, Rabbi Yehuda Halevi writes, that Ata Yismach Yisrael, that Yisrael, meaning Baal Shem Tov, is be besimcha from the Tanya, because Tanya is elaborating on and developing Chassidus Chabad, Chassidus HaKlolis, and Baal Shem Tov heard from Mashiach. When he went up in the Heichel of Mashiach, it says in Rosh Hashanah Tov Kuv Zayin, Baal Shem Tov writes to his brother-in-law, Rab Geshen Ketover, famous letter, he asked Mashiach, Masai Kosi Mar, when will you come? And Mashiach answered, when your wellsprings of Chassidus will spread outward, which is this essence of what Tanya is, what Chassidus in general is obviously to bring down these ideas in Chabad, Chochmah, Bina, Das, but above all, that it should affect Chutzah. Now what's Chutzah? Tzemach Tzedek writes, Chutzah is even Midas, Legabe Mechin, is already Chutzah. But Chutzah goes obviously in the language of Sfiris Malchus, into Biyah. Chutzah means reaching also that the Seichel, Ha'odam, including the Seichel of the Nefesh HaBamis, the human intelligence, and even the intelligence of the animal soul should understand Elokus and also connect to it. So when we say Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad, the Hizbaranus around that Echad, Achdus Hashem, the divine unity, the all-encompassing divine unity, which we spoke about so much in the previous chapters, especially chapters 20 and 21, and what we're learning now is also a continuation of that should permeate even the Chutzah, even the Nefesh HaBamis, to the point where V'ahavtas Hashem Elokecha, after Shema, B'chol Levavcha, B'shnei Yitzarecha. That the love for Hashem should affect B'chol Levavcha, not just Lipcha, with one base, two bases, and as the Gemara says, refers to the Yetzer Tev and the Yetzer Hara, B'shnei Yitzarecha, both sides. That even the Nefesh HaBamis, the Chutzah, should also appreciate godliness, and it should also engage and be transformed and harnessed into a force that loves God. So the idea of Mashiach, which is the coming of Mashiach, is tied directly to Yefutza Meinasecha Chutza. So as we're learning Tanya, and we learn Chassidus in general, what more appropriate is to honor a day, Chof Ches Nissan, 34 years ago, when the Rebbe told us that we must do everything we can. Now you could ask the question, we always have to do everything we can. What changed there? And truth is, Purim Tavshem Mem Zayin, 4 years earlier, the Rebbe said similar words, which I'm not going to go into detail, but briefly, that he said that went over from the Nasi to HaKoil. that when there was iskashus, proper iskashus to Rebbe, so the people, Hakel meaning the nation, Am Yisrael, they do their Aveda, and then the Nasi would lead them into the Gula. But due to the fact that that iskashus is not complete, so it goes over from Anosi to Hakel that everybody has to be more active participant. This doesn't mean, God forbid, as others misunderstand, the Rebbe is saying, I did the job, now I'm dropping it on you. The Rebbe is saying, part of my job is to continue, is to inspire you, to do something on your part. In other words, it has to be more bepnimius on our end. As the Rebbe continues in that 28th Nissan, Chavches Nissan Siche, that the main thing to get out of the goal is pnimi. Because we are so trapped in our psychological bondage, so to speak, our psychological inhibitions and fears and insecurities. It's called golus mentality. It doesn't necessarily be a critique. It's just over the years we adapt to a golus mentality. That's why we can go to sleep peacefully and not feel geula. Someone once asked the Rebbe, Shturims, and talks so much about Moshiach and geula. Why? Why is he so adamant, so passionate? So the Rebbe said, golus is a machla. It's an illness. If someone is ill, you don't just say, okay, let's try to heal. You do everything possible. You'll fight. You'll stay up nights. You won't rest. You won't leave any stone unturned until you get rid of the illness. The fact that we can get used to it is part of golus. Like the Baal Shem Tov says, an haster aster ponai, b'yei hahu. That the hester of golus is a double hester. One is the concealment, a concealment that conceals that it's a concealment. You don't even know it's dark. You don't even know it's an illness. You don't even know it's a problem. You get used to it. It's like getting used to the dark. Rabbi Hillel Parisher, a chassid of the Tzemach Tzedek, and Mittler Rebbe, and Alter Rebbe, but was a great chassid. So in the olden days, there was no air conditioning. So in the very hot days in Russia, what did you do to get some relief? So they had these basements, these cellars, that you went down to, that was cooler. You can cool off. One very hot such day, Rabbi Hillel went down to one of these basements. Remember, since there's no electricity, there's also no light. So it's completely dark. And he went down, it was pitch black. And he said, it's so dark here. So one of the people sitting there, who's been there for a while, said, don't worry, you'll stay here, you'll get used to it. And he said, that's exactly what I'm worried about. I don't want to get used to it. Because once you get used to it, then the darkness becomes part of your natural reality, so to speak. So in a Rebbe, Shturim is about Moshiach. What he's doing is waking us up from the dream of Golus. Remember, Hayinu Kachelmim, it's asleep. That we don't even know that we're asleep. So that's the first thing, is to push it, wake ourselves up. It's not easy, because we get so accustomed to something, we think this is our reality. Yeah, we believe Mashiach will come, and we say it many times a day in davening. 6-7 brachas and Shemon Esrei are just dedicated to that. But it becomes more of an abstract idea. So what does it mean, tut als was kennt? So first of all, the words itself speak for themselves. The Rebbe didn't say one thing, do this or do that. Obviously, it includes, as the Rebbe explained later, the derech yeshara, all increasing in all Torah mitzvahs. That's how you bring Moshiach and Gula. There's no need for new things. But with an increased passion, with an increased commitment, with increased bekamus and be'echus, both quantity and quality. But tut als means not to leave any stone unturned, to really look at every possible way. So I'll just share one specific approach, which to me resonates to me, but it's not by no means limiting just to that. The mere fact that we apply ourselves, you and I, we all think about it, that already is beginning the tut als v'sikent. But apply ourselves seriously. If you were given a job, if you were called in by the Rebbe to private yechidus, and he said to you, I'm giving you a shlichus. This is your shlichus. Not where you could say maybe he meant someone else, he's speaking to a lot of people, maybe it's not me, but you know it's you. How would your attitude be to that? You wouldn't leave any stone unturned. There wouldn't be anything you wouldn't do. This is your shlichus. That's how we have to look at it, as a personal thing. The first thing is to ask the question. Like I said, knowing that it's dark is the beginning of the healing, knowing the problem. Second, shaylas chacham chetzi tshuva. The question of a wise person is half an answer. So just applying ourselves with a sense of urgency and intensity and priority is the beginning. And think of ideas. Just like if lahavdil in business, you have an issue, you have a challenge, you sit down, you want to grow, you come up, you brainstorm, you have ideas, you list them. Same thing here. Let's take this personally and say, let's list what ideas, what can we do? What can I do? What can my wife do? What can my husband do? What can my children do? My community, your sphere of influence. Think of it in practical terms. Now you'll say, that's a good question. So one of the things is to learn about Geula Mashiach. If you don't know what it is, it's very hard to do anything. Then it becomes just, as I said, an abstract ideal, an abstract destination. So that's why the Rebbe emphasized learn. The more you learn about something, it comes before Pesach. Why Shleishim Yom Kedem HaChag? Why do you learn Hilchos Pesach? Because you need to know what to do. Comes the day of Pesach, and you didn't learn the halachas, or you didn't hear about the halachas. How do you deal with matzah? How do you deal with chametz? How do you deal with so on? Same thing, Hilchos Mashiach. So learning is in Torah Shebiksav, in Torah Shebal Peh. There's psukim about it. In Chamisha Chum Torah, it's more beremes, the Rambam says. In the Nevi'im Aleim, it's filled with Achar Pesach. We said in the Haftarah was all about Mashiach and Geula. That's in Torah Shebiksav, in Torah Shebal Peh, the whole sugi in Perek Chelik, in Sanhedrin, and other places. And then, of course, in Halacha, there's the Rambam. The Rambam talks about it in Perek Yud Aleph and Yud Beis, the last two prokim of Sefer Mishnah Torah, Yad HaChazakim. So the more you familiarize yourself with something, the more palpable it is, the more palatable it is, the more connected you become to it, and it becomes less abstract. And the second thing is action, to bring it into action. We know all mitzvahs are mekar of the Geula, but then you have stokim mekareves as a Geula. Shabbos, other mitzvahs have specific focus. And in general, infusing all our Torah mitzvahs to recognize, as the Alter Rebbe says in Tanya, the beginning of chapter 37, after explaining in chapter 36, Lamed Vav, that the Tachlis Habriya is the Maika Dira B'Tachtenim, and when you do that, we'll have the L'Osilavi Gilead L'Kus of the Nigla Kved Hashem V'Rol Kol Basar Yagdov in this world, and the other psukim that he brings in Perek Lamed Zayin, he says, and that's why all this Gilead L'Kus Be'elam Hazeh of Yimesa Mashiach and Tchis HaMesim Tolei B'Maseinu V'Avadeseinu. In other words, our actions and our mitzvahs are not just an action, and as a Geula, you get a reward called Geula. Every mitzvah is a piece of Geula. Schar mitzvah as he brings. Because what's a mitzvah? When you do a mitzvah, what's learning Torah? You're bringing a L'kus into your life. A mitzvah is Ratzon Hashem, whether it's Hanochas Film, or Tzitzis, or Shabbos, or Kashrus, or whatever it may be. Ratzon Hashem, you're fulfilling God's will in this physical world. That's Gilead L'Kus in this world. When you learn Torah, you're learning Hashem's Torah. You're connecting with Hashem's Chachma. Chachmasa v'ritzeni yizbarach. God's wisdom and God's will. That's Gilead L'Kus. What's Geula? When all that Gilead L'Kus accumulates and completely submerges the world in that. Molo Oretz Deis Hashem, Kamayim Le'yam Mechasim. A world filled with divine knowledge as the waters cover the sea, as the Rambam says at the end of Hilchos Malachim that I cited before. The world will be filled with delights. The whole business, lo yeh ella, likuva, ella to know God. Or as he brings at the end, the pasuk, Molo Oretz Deis Hashem Kamayim Le'yam Mechasim. So what does that mean? That every mitzvah we do, every action we do is essentially a building block. It's a piece of Geula. And when it all accumulates, you have the Geula Amitis V'Ashleim. And one final point. It's very difficult to wait for something and anticipate, and especially in a passionate way if you don't relate to it. That's why you need to learn about it. So practical suggestion of Tutal V'Sikent would be for each of us to sit down, even a few minutes. Sit down with our families, make it a topic. to envision what would the world look like? What would your world look like? What would your home look like? What would your room look like? What would your life look like when Mashiach comes? Push it practically. Will there be birds? Will there be trees? Will there be the streets in your... Will we all go to Eretz Yisrael immediately? What will the world look like? Will we go to work? If you can't answer that question, it means it's still an abstract idea. You have to push it practically, envision it. Now you'll say envisioning that creates it? No, but it makes it the reality. Like we said before, we got used to Golus mentality. Golus mentality is life as it is, the status quo. Thinking about Mashiach is thinking about the future, what it could be. And when you can envision that in a practical way, it's a step toward it, because your consciousness then becomes a Gu'uladik consciousness. And the more you can envision it, the more you would aspire to it. And therefore, the more excited you'd be about it. It wouldn't become something that's passive or optional. In other words, the reality would become, the Mashiach reality would be something compelling that pulls us out of the trap of the status quo and the inertia of Golus mentality. So how do we envision it? So I'll share two examples. One from a letter from the Rebbe. Very interesting letter, the Igris Kedesh from the first years, I think, Tovshin Yud Aleph, 1951. The Rebbe writes to a dry cleaners, of all people. Yeah, someone who owned the cleaners. The Rebbe said, everything's Ashgacha Pratis. The fact that you clean clothing has to have a lesson of Avodas Hashem. What's the lesson? And here's what the Rebbe says. The lesson is, you buy a pair of clothes, you buy a new suit, new begadim, new levushim, new garments. Many people did that before Pesach. You wear it once, beautiful. A second time, a third time. At some point, it starts getting soiled, wrinkled, dirty, stained. So you think, okay, after a while, if you're a Balpatisha person, you're not going to wear it again. No, comes the cleaner concept. You just bring it to cleaners. What does the cleaners do? They take the garment, they submerge it in water. Not just water, but hot water. Mix it with chemicals that remove stains and other things that are hard to remove. Then they take it out, dry it, put it under a press, a heavy press, and press it, and there you go, voila, like a new garment. And this process can be repeated many times in the life of this garment. What's the lesson of Avodas Hashem? Neshama shenasata bi tahirihi. Every one of us has a pure neshama, as we say every morning. But then life can hurt us, can soil, can wrinkle, can stain. Every Aveda creates a stain. The neshama remains pure, but now it's been stained. Through life in this world, people are broken, people are hurt, different things happen. We may betray ourselves, betray others. We may abandon our destiny. We sometimes worse than that. So you'd think, okay, it's a one-way street now. I'm damaged goods, so to speak. Broken. Comes the lesson, no. Immerse your neshama and your life into Torah. Ein mayim ela Torah. Torah is compared to water, but not just water, cold water, warm water. Chayis, chmimus, varmkeit, passion. And then mix chemicals. Every mitzvah is another chemical. Mitzvahs are misaken. The Ramach mitzvah sesa correspond to the Ramach evarim de Malka. So every mitzvah corresponds to one of the divine organs or limbs. That's how you start getting rid of the stains. So any aveda, any sin is corrected. Then you have to place it under a heavy press. Kabbalas oil malchus shamayim. Kabbalas oil. And that refreshes the garment, refreshes the person, and it's like a new garment. And this you can do many times in your lifetime. Okay, it's a beautiful lesson of its own. But let's go further. I remember after reading the letter, I was walking in my neighborhood. And I don't very often walk, but I was walking up the street, and I suddenly noticed the dry cleaners. I never looked at a dry cleaners the same way again. The Rebbe's letter made me look at it and see, it's more than just I go to cleaners when I need to bring clothing there. Now I saw it as a lesson of Avodas Hashem. A taste of Mola Oras Deis Hashem Kamayim L'Yom Nechasim Lo Yidiyah Esek Kol Ha'elim El L'Dasas Hashem B'Vol. I saw Dasas Hashem, I saw dry cleaners as a moshel. Like it says, Mupsari Echzalekah, from my flesh I behold God. B'chol D'rechecha De'eyu. So you look at a Gashmizdika thing and you see a lesson for Hashem in it, from a lesson of Avedis Hashem from it. And then I noticed another dry cleaners a little further up the street, and then the next block, and the next block. Then I thought to myself, it's not just the cleaners. What about the bakery? What about the grocery store? What about the pizza shop? Everything is a lesson of Avedis Hashem. But today, when we look with Gashmizdika eyes, we don't think about it. We see the existing reality. When you look with Mashiach eyes, you see the true reality. Why all these things exist? To be mashalim, to be examples, to be lessons and teaching us what is elikus, what is godliness. That's what the world will look like when Mashiach comes. Geula, Geula, as the Medrash says, is the same letters. Geula is made up of Geula. It's not a new word. It's made of Gimel, Vav, Lamed, Hey, but with one addition, an Aleph. The Aleph of Alufei Shalelam. The Aleph of Achdus, Hashem. So everything that exists in this world will be there. As the Rambam says, you don't need miracles. There'll be stages where there'll be miracles. Everything will be there, but we'll see the Aleph within the dry cleaners. We'll see the Aleph within the physical reality of everything. V'niglik feid Hashem v'ro kol basa yachdev kepi Hashem diber, in every single thing. Even mikir tizak, the stone in the wall will cry out. Everything in this world will be saturated, will be revealed godliness. Second story, which is a story that happened with myself, which captures this idea very powerfully. I was invited once to speak at a medical conference, not because I'm a doctor, I'm not the son of a doctor, but there were a few people who knew me and they wanted me to describe medicine of the future according to Judaism, according to Torah. So I got up and I explained briefly that the whole concept of death, Rahman al-Islam, disease, illness, is an aberration. It's not natural. The Torah tells us that if Adam and Chava did not eat from Eitz Hadas, they would live forever. So obviously there'd be no death and not any illnesses that lead to that. What's the logic behind it? Sounds fantastic, right? Live forever? Nobody lives forever. The logic is actually quite simple. A neshama is filled with divine energy of life. It's filled with life, chayim. Doesn't run out of gas like a car. So why is there death? Why can't the neshama stay inside the body forever? Doesn't run out of energy. It's coming straight from the source. Chayim, the Eibishter. Think of a cup of water. You pour water in a cup. That's excluding the issue of evaporation. Why should the water ever run out of the cup? The answer is if the cup gets punctured. So then the water starts leaking out. The problem is not with the neshama, the problem is with the guf. Once there's a chet eitzadas, a type of dissonance and displacement. Aveda from the word displacement, mitzvah from the word connection, Aveda from the word disconnection, then the body, the appliance, starts wearing down. So it can't be it's not a seamless keli for the divine energy of the neshama, for the life energy. At some point, illness, sickness, God forbid, and death. But once you repair all the punctures, which is what we do through Maseinu v'Avedaseinu and our Aveda, then the cup is repaired, the body is repaired, and the neshama can be with the body forever and ever. So the medicine of the future, I said, is that there won't be any more illness and disease and death. After I finished, I elaborated more, but that was the point. One of the doctors, one of the head doctors, the hosts, asked the question. He says, so what will we doctors do after Mashiach comes? We'll be out of a job. So after the prerequisite joke that maybe that's why doctors charge so much for a long retirement, I said, on the contrary, the most beautiful thing you'll be doing, because of your intimate knowledge of human anatomy and biology and chemistry and dermatology and endocrinology, etc., you'll teach us the secrets of God, of godliness, embedded in the human being. Because the human being was created in the divine image. And mipsari echzel akam, from my flesh I can behold God. You'll teach us these secrets, just like astronomers will teach us the secrets of God in the cosmos. And the same thing with computer engineers. And the same thing with all masters or whatever their wisdom may be. They'll teach us the God, the Aleph. They'll place the Aleph in the Geula and make it Geula. You'll teach us the Geula Dika perspective of everything that exists around us. There's a very powerful reaction. There's so many secular doctors there. They responded unbelievable positive. Because it resonates. It resonates. So our mission, one of the things in 2000% is to think of ways to envision Geula, but in practical ways. Like what it will look like in my life, and what can I do to lead to that? Because once you understand it that way, then you look at a dry cleaners, or you look at or medicine or other things, you look at the human body, you see it as an expression of God's brilliance, of God's wisdom, of God's design. Kulam b'chachma sisa. And everything begins to reveal godliness. It takes effort, absolutely. This doesn't come automatic because, again, naturally, we're products of this material world. But that's not who we are. That's where we are. That's where we are, not who we are. The key is to elevate it through Torah mitzvahs, through Zbonenus, through contemplation, through learning, through doing everything possible to reveal godliness in our lives. And this, in essence, is what Chassidus is. When you learn Nigla, so of course, Reis v'Kudsha B'Rechu Kul Echad is part of what Hashem wants. It's His Ratzon, it's His Chachma. But you don't always see the godliness in it. When you learn Primis HaTorah, it's like the Neshama. So you're learning the Neshama of Lamates Malachas, the Neshama of Hilchus Pesach, the Neshama of Sfiras Eimer. And you're revealing the Hashem. So it really goes hand in hand, as the Zohar says. Gufa Daraisa, Neshmasa Daraisa. Chassidus is Mepsari Echzelakas, teaching us how to see godliness and Achdus Hashem, the Aleph, placing the Aleph of Alufa Shalelim into Geula, so we see Geula. And seeing it in everything. So obviously they go hand in hand, every mitzvah. You have Shabbos, so there's the body of Shabbos, there's the Neshama of Shabbos. The more you bring in Neshama, that's what Mashiach told the Baal Shem Tov. When your well springs, when you'll bring the Neshama of everything into the world, even to Chutzah, to the Chutzah she'en Chutzah memena, that's when Mashiach will come. It's direct cause and effect. Because that's what you're doing. You're basically revealing godliness, which is the concept of Gili Elim Sov Elam Hazar Gashmi, which is the very essence of what Mashiach is. May we all be zeicha to do exactly that. Take this special day, and the truth is it's avodah all year round. Infuse it in our lives. Make it a priority. More priority than anything else. That's how we do everything we can. 2000%. And we should be zeicha immediately after all the work we have already done to the Gula Amitis V'Ashlema. So this class was dedicated, we didn't learn Tanya exactly, we will continue from Perek Chaf Hei where we're up to in the next weeks. And everyone have a good Tavach, and a good Niyar, good Gebench Tiyar, good Gebench Summer, and above all a Geula Dike Yar. We should already have the Gula Amitis V'Ashlema.
This has been My Life, Tanya Applied with Rabbi Simon Jacobson. Please join us again next week. Visit ChassidusApplied.com for archived classes and more resources.